Welcome to Heartwired, Emotionally Intelligent Leadership for an AI World, the podcast where technology meets humanity. I'm Dr. MJ, your host. So, is generosity a soft skill, or is it one of the sharpest leadership strategies that many people are not using? Today's guest, Joe Davis, is the author of The Generous Leader, 7 Ways to Give of Yourself for Everyone's Gain. And he'll give us a little bit more insight into that question. And Joe shared a piece of feedback in his book. He was told that on his own, he was probably not going to solve the most difficult analytical problems, but with others, he can solve any challenge. This is his key strength. He's a person who could connect with others. A little bit about Joe. He spent 37 years at Boston Consulting Group, known as BCG, serving as managing director, senior partner, and he led BCG's North America, co-founded Washington, D.C. office, and founded and chaired BCG's Center for Inclusion and Equity. Thank you, Joe, for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much, Mary Jane, for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm so glad you are. So you've had this really incredible career. After your career, you were inspired to write The Generous Leader. What was it that inspired you to write a book?
That's a good question, because writing a book is a lot of work. I discovered funny story. My wife used to say, "Come to dinner with us now with the family." I'd say, "No, sir, if I'm not typing, nothing gets done." You cannot delegate that away unless you hire a ghostwriter. So what inspired it? Well, couple things. One, a lot of people, after coming out of COVID, and I was leading North America, BCG North America then, said you should really write a book about leadership talent, somewhat about your stories, which was funny because I got a lot written, had an editor, publisher read it, and they said, no one will read a memoir, and it's too much about COVID. So I expanded it, brought other people, CEOs and clients into the picture. But my real goal, as I was working through it, and it was difficult, it's just like I was talking to my chief of staff. He said, "Joe," I said, "Oh my God, it's so hard to write this book." He said, "Joe, if you can move 8 people to just enhance their leadership, it'll be worth it." My goals are above 8, but it's really why I wrote it. Because to your point on generous, you said a sharp strategy. I think when someone who can define generous, who can really bring that kind of heart-led, the humanity into their leadership, 1, I think it's now required, but 2, it puts the leader at a whole different level, especially in the eyes of their teams. And then, which of course is, then the teams are humming better, et cetera.
Yeah, and that's why I'm doing this podcast, just very similar. I hope to move a few leaders myself into really thinking about emotions. Yeah, so we got that in common. You talked a little bit about giving yourself freely in your book and not having expectations to help others grow. So what actually makes a leader what you consider generous?
Well, what I consider generous first is a leader, as you just said, who kind of gives of themselves freely to ensure to help others grow, develop, and thrive at their full potential. That's when you're that type of leader, you still have to be a great manager. You still have to be good technical business skills or whatever it is, soccer coach skills, if that's what you're doing. But when you can go that step above, you're really being what I've called the generous leader. What you're really doing is helping your team to thrive at their best. And obviously, when that happens, you indirectly win, your team performs better, the organization performs better. So that's really what I'm speaking about. I actually listen to your podcast on kind versus nice, and the difference of the 2 words. And by generous, it doesn't mean you're nice all the time. Really trying to help somebody grow, you might have to give them very direct, very difficult feedback. You can deliver it nicely, but it may not feel very nice. But if you don't do it, actually how nice you really being if you're not giving someone a heads up. So that's what I think here is we're really trying to help ensure others grow and develop.
So really that generous is giving of yourself, what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the traits of a generous leader?
I identify 7. I won't go through all of them just because of time, but there's a few I think are so critical. One is that someone is really a good listener. They engage with their teams, their people, etc. They listen, they're curious, and they ask questions over and over. And when I say listen, it's not just like, oh, I heard the words you said, but why are you saying this? What do you mean? What do you know I don't know? Where are you coming from? Whether it's a different part of an organization, what's your background? Where are you coming from? And I'll tell you a little story on this, the idea of listening. One time I was at a BCG meeting, steering committee meeting of a client, and the head of supply chain was giving a presentation to the room, including and mainly the CEO. And he was going down a path, one direction. And the CEO stopped him and asked a question that came in kind of orthogonally. And he looked over, a little surprised, paid lip service to the question, and then went back to his presentation. You could see instantly the CEO's eyes glazed over. Me thought, wait a minute. If you're not going to even take the time, if you don't understand my question, at least say, sir, why are you asking that? Said you were not listening to me at all. And, when that happens, all of a sudden the other person is not, they don't listen to you anymore. It turns off. So listening is critical. I think this whole recognition of feedback, if you're really going to grow others, is essential. And, by that is briefly, really understand what are some person's strengths that they can leverage, of course, but where they really need to work, and give them actionable, direct feedback, ideally in the moment. There's nothing worse than mushy feedback. Like, that was a great meeting. There's a few things you need to work on and do better next time. Okay, now what do I do? But a lot of people, that's all they get. And then
it's true.
The thing I'll say is, you've really got to you can pick your word, but you got to bring your human self to work. You have to be authentic and maybe humble. How can you be a good listener if you're not humble enough to think, if you humble enough to think, they know something I don't know. Think you know it all. Good luck to you. So those are a few traits I think of. There's listening, developing really, and authenticity, vulnerability, you call it what you want, but bring in a human self.
Yeah. So critical to really be that authentic leader. I agree with you 100%. But you also mentioned something that I want to ask and have you describe a little bit more, and that is taking down the mask. What do you mean by that?
Well, that's where I really mean bring your human self, be vulnerable, be authentic, as you said. And I'll tell you kind of two stories. And by the way, it doesn't mean like, every time I have a meeting and I feel emotional, cry. I'm not arguing that. If you can cry, that's okay. But, not everyone. I'll tell a funny story. One time, someone said to me, well, Joe, I tend to cry a lot. I said, well, it's easy for you. You're a white male. You're over 60. You run BCG North America. If you cry, no one's going to care, or you don't have to care. Or a 30-year-old woman getting going in the workforce crying, I'm sorry about the stereotype, but it could actually be not very helpful. So there's the right moment. But, what I can tell a story, but it can be as simple as, I don't know is a wonderful trait. So I had a friend, I asked him, when have you been more authentic and kind of shown some vulnerability? He said, I'm really afraid to do that. He said, an example is like if I'm in a meeting with the team and I can tell they're stuck and they might turn to me and ask me for where they should go, and I don't know the answer. He said, I'll leave the room before I get the question. He wouldn't even face the vulnerability of saying, I don't know. Oh, he said one time he put down his mask. He said, this is silly. I'm going to stay here. They asked the question. He said, I don't know either, everybody. And it was amazing. All of a sudden, by being authentic, being honest, being humble, the room ignited all this. And wow, you don't know. The boss doesn't know. We don't know. The energy started flowing. The brainstorming started flowing. So, if you can bring some authenticity and fear even a little bit, if you have it, others who are being blocked by it, all of a sudden it releases them. The boss doesn't know. I don't have to know. Okay. So when you show that, you free others to bring their authentic self and move past roadblocks that are not helping anybody.
Yeah, and that's being vulnerable. As a manager, especially if you're a new manager, you want to look like you really know everything. And it's not possible. It's just not possible. And if you pretend that you do know everything, people aren't going to believe you.
But no, that's what you just said. It's not possible. And for you to be so arrogant to think you know it all, and or to think they don't know that you don't. You don't know what my morning was like, so you can't possibly know how we all feel today when you come into work. Hey guys, we're all fired up. Let's go. Well, actually, I'm not fired up today. Yes, last night was a tough, whatever. But people smell through that so fast.
Yeah. They do. We can tell when someone is really not being authentic. I mean, we really can tell. We have that, I hope that we can tell, because
Yeah.
that's the emotional intelligence really
Right.
kind of reading the room and saying, oh, wait a minute, is this person really real to me?
But I'll
Go ahead.
tell you a story on this. Is
Uh-huh.
interesting. I was talking to Scott Kirby, the CEO of United. During COVID, he was going to go just like a couple of weeks in, go on to the town hall with all his employees and tell them, we're not sure when we're going to fly again. Try not to, we're going to furlough people, but try not to lay you off. Just be as honest as he could. And his team, his exec, you can't say that. You're the CEO. You have to have all the answers. He said, but everybody, I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
So you want to lie? So it went on, and it just was very calming to people because, okay,
Yeah.
you have to have a plan. You couldn't be lost. If you're lost, you're not going to be respected. But he admitted he didn't know, but here's what we're going to try to do. Boom, boom, boom. And, the fact that his team said, no, tell him you know everything. They didn't really say it that way, but say, do not admit you don't.
No, and during the pandemic, nobody knew.
Yeah, well, that's the easy thing. Yeah. It's
So,
a
I
tricky
mean,
thing.
I was flying by the seat of our pants. What? Who? What is happening? Yeah. So speaking of that authenticity, you did tell me that there was one time in some meeting, a CEO hologrammed into a meeting. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, this is interesting because that also ties to your theme of in an AI world, or let's just even say the next step of technology. I think one reason all this matters is because now, as you know, from the BlackBerry many years ago, through the cell phone, through Zoom, through AI, our work and life world is blurred, work and home life. And so people need to bring their human self, want to, expect to bring it. And I was thinking about that as it gets even more important for the leader to be as authentic and as real and as human as they can be. And I was at a BCG, we have worldwide officer meetings twice a year. And one of them, the eastern part of the world stay there, Europe stays there, and the Americans stay here. And we have a big video meeting type of thing. And we were all same, whatever, they picked the time zone, but the CEO was in Europe. And his hologram came up on our stage talking to us. And, this is possible now. And I thought, whoa, I mean, it's cool. It was very catchy. And he was, in the old days, it just would have been him on video or like this. But I thought, wow, so that could be him not there, though. He could have recorded this. It could not, and the human touch could disappear pretty damn fast, or at least all of us thinking, wait a minute, if my boss is just going to zoom in, or what it was in Star Trek, but just come in like by technology, is he really there? Does he or she care? Is she bringing it, or is it just all set up perfectly? So that, to me, I thought, wow, this is going to the next step, which sure, it's more efficient, sure, it's effective. He didn't have to waste the time to fly across the world. I get all that. But I, as a listener, thought, is the human part of this even more disappearing?
Yeah, I know. And now with AI, it's going to probably get worse too. There's more technology. Yeah, it is. And you think about today, leaders are not, and I know that I always had remote employees, not even before the pandemic. My employees were not in the same office building as I was. They were maybe in a different part of the state, or even sometimes in a different state, and managing through that. But that is going to be happening more often now, even more so. So how do leaders keep that kind of human touch, even though they're not in the same room?
Yeah. Sorry, this is silly, but keep it real. That hologram wasn't real. He was there, but there was no feeling to have interactions. Be no different. If I'm having a meeting with 7 people on the screen here, I say to people, try to be inclusive of your team. And one thing I do to be inclusive, and by that I mean up and down the line or different departments, is ask the least tenured person in the room the first question. And everyone goes, whoa, the boss is asking the least, whoa, I guess that person matters. Whereas otherwise, everyone thinks you can do that you can do human touches, whether it's Zoom, whether it's phone. You can't do it if you're not there. I mean, not in some live way, but that's the thing. I think I would just bring the human touches into every interaction. And it doesn't mean just chit chat about home life the first 20 minutes of a meeting, but ask everyone in the room a question. Ask them, think about as you go into the room, who's here, where are they coming from, what department, what's their background, how can I engage them and get them to participate? And I don't think that matters whether it's, Zoom or video or face-to-face. You can do that. The other thing, Sarah, you want a funny one?
Yeah.
During COVID, I did a lot of town halls and people said, geez, Joe, I feel like you're actually right into my heart. And a lot of people if you remember Zoom first came out, people were looking at their screen like this and the camera and the person was staring right at, and I would literally think, okay, I'm staring at the camera. It's going through all these airways, wherever, into you. That's how I would think that way. And the people, they said, you're connecting with me. I was. No, you weren't. You're talking to 40 people. I felt like I was. It's a funny thing, but it's get yourself into the mode of I'm connecting with these people here. I'm not dictating. I'm not just giving a speech. I'm not reading a speech, etc.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask another question. So when you think about your concepts of the generous leader, how does that relate to emotional intelligence? I mean, where's the overlap?
I think, isn't it all about emotional intelligence?
Yes.
If you're really going to stop and think about who's in the room, where are they coming from? By definition, I might be doing it rationally, but when someone says something, why are they saying that versus not? What does it mean? Also, I think one of the highest things to show EQ is actually to ask people questions and listen to the answer, right? Because now all of a sudden it's not just me. So really doing that over and over. Related to this, Google did a study they called the Project Oxygen with 80,000 managers across the world. But they looked at the highest performing managers. And it's very interesting. They were good coaches. How'd they do that? They actually engaged and empowered. So they had the EQ to actually, and the way they did that, they asked and listened. So they actually, stepped past themselves, tried to understand who's over there and asked them questions and then listened to them. So again, if we're going to say vulnerability, that's EQ. I don't know. You tell me, but I think
no, you're on the right track. Yeah, there is that kind of being aware of yourself, controlling your emotions with consciously, not being unemotional, but understanding what's happening inside and what is the right emotion to go forward with. And then also it's that social awareness, like you said, who are the people in the room? And how do you get them to be engaged? And that's kind of the social interaction. It's the management of relationships. It's where leadership actually, in my opinion, really lives in that sphere.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the person that at BCG, it's all up or out. And someone was a manager trying to be partner, and he wasn't going to make it. And I was the head of the office, so I told him, this is it. And he was a big guy. He was German, not really relevant, but maybe a little bit. And he was smart as a whip. And I said, well, the problem is you don't listen. And he said, what do you mean? Of course I listen. So, to your point about stepping outside yourself.
Right.
Now, part of the problem is he's so damn smart, he thought he knew all the answers in a nice way, but it doesn't work that way. And, he couldn't move past his own head to actually, develop some connection with the others.
Yeah, I know. I had a client and she was telling me about one of the meetings that she was in, and that the manager would come in, and anytime one of his employees would say, actually it was her employees, would say, here's an idea, she would cut him down right then and there. Oh, that was done before. Oh, I've done it this way. Oh, I've done it that way. And wasn't listening to them and honoring them of their ideas. And so that was just really cutting off all creative thought and inspiration and everything. Have you experienced that in your consulting world that you've been in for so long?
I think we've all experienced that in one way. Yes. No, but where it's interesting, because if you get a closed-minded consultant and you're speaking with your clients and you say, well, what about this? And a lot of them, they might have a little doubt on work because they don't want the consultant telling them what to do. But the truth is they know something you don't know. I say to my teams, rarely is a noologist just a blocker. Maybe 1 out of 1,000 actually is trying to block, but usually they know something. And your job is to go find the skeptics and engage them and really learn what they know that you don't know and then address it. Instead of being one of these, say, oh, no, you don't understand this, and this is how it works. Actually do just the opposite. And you think the best consultants, senior consultants, who almost are CEO whisperers, are just really, that's all they're thinking about doing. Why are you asking that? What's that idea you said? What do you mean by it? Whether it's with their clients or with their teams, they're really trying to understand, what are they bringing? Yeah, and the opposite is a death knell. I mean, you just said it, but the story you said, I said, well, a team is never going to bring another idea to that person. It's like, now, good luck getting anything done.
Yeah.
Except for maybe the timesheet. They'll do the timesheet. I'm joking, but
Yeah. I love that. The CEO whisperer.
Yes.
I can see how that works. Yeah. With coaching and with consulting, to really kind of speak. And because, a CEO is in a position, they're kind of by themselves in so many ways. They don't have that someone to reflect back to. So I think it's so critical to have that.
If you want to get less out of business for a minute, think about the best husbands that you hear about. I remember that show was something, it was 30-something. And the guy everybody loved was so good at asking questions and what are you thinking to everybody, but in particular his wife, what are you thinking here? What's that on your mind? I mean, same dang thing. It was a husband whisperer, actually. Listen and keep their mouth shut. That's the other thing.
That's the other thing. And that, I know with coaching, that's definitely one of the things. Yeah. Asking questions. Yeah, it really works. I want to shift over a little bit to, you did say you've done some lecturing with college students, and some of them called AI evil. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, yeah, this was a liberal arts school, which maybe has some of the stereotypes they do, although I went there and I love the school and I'm involved in it. But it was very interesting. I was speaking in a class, and at the end, the professor said, well, tell us about AI in the workforce and what you think. My answer is pretty, everybody, all of you here, you need to know how to use it. You don't have to know how to program it. You need to know what it is. Otherwise, I can tell you, depending on what kind of job you want, it's going to be a problem. There were some that shaking their head, yes, sir, yes, sir. And a couple spoke up and said, well, I don't agree with you, and this is horrible. I said, what do you mean? They had two major issues. One was actually the climate issue, which we all, is just like an evil thing in the context of the data centers and I actually don't know about the word evil, but I don't disagree with the climate impact, and we have to solve that. But the other was the risk of AI or governments using it to control. I mean, there's a lot of real risks. Now the AI people are all talking about it. But the young people, there was some that, yes, I'll embrace it. And there was a big chunk that said, this is really dangerous for this world. And you're crazy? Look to me. Now there are also 20-year-olds that could be energetic. Yeah. We don't want to go on a whole AI thing, but there's a great power to the AI, but we do have to figure out how to use it responsibly. And we all know that.
Yep. And that's why I'm doing this podcast, actually, is to really, if you have that emotional intelligence, you have the integrity, and you have the critical thought, you're going to make the right decision. If you could think of one thing you'd like to leave for the listeners after our discussion today, what would that be?
Well, I guess the one thing I'd say, in any context you're engaged, you're going to be more respected and a better leader the more you ask questions of others and listen. In other words, the more you engage. The EQ part is the listen. The asking part is just a practical thing, but really ask and listen. It'll have so much benefit.
Yeah.
Actually,
Thank you.
Every aspect of your life, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. In every aspect.
You can remember that. Ask and listen.
Thank you so much, Joe, for joining. And this is what stood out. AI gets smarter, it'll get faster, but it will never have that generosity. That's a leader who needs to bring that in. And you can find Joe's book and his bio and his links in the show notes. And if this conversation moved you, subscribe to Heartwired and share this episode with a leader who needs it. And if you're interested in enhancing your emotional intelligence skills, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, Mary Jean Vignone, or you can reach me on my website, drdrmjheartwired.com. Until next time, lead with your heart and keep it wired to the people in front of you. Thank you.